All right. So thank you so much for coming. You and I have known each other for a long time, and I've been watching you lead different companies. You joined Phillips 66 as the CEO in 2022, and since then you've implemented a number of programs and taken the reins and taken Phillips 66 into a new direction. Can you maybe just give us a history of Phillips 66 and where your vision is taking the company?
Sure, Cliff. Well, we've been around in different forms for almost 130 years. And so I really liked Peter's comment today. If you want to survive over the long haul, you got to know what your business really is. And the way we look at it, our mission, our business is to provide energy and improve lives. And that's what we've been doing for 130 years. And it's changed pretty dramatically over that time frame. We started off, I started off with Phillips Petroleum Company, 36 years ago. The industry's gone through a lot of changes. There have been a lot of in and outs. Then we were part of a big integrated oil company. So upstream, out exploring, finding, developing oil and gas, bringing it downstream, turning it into refined products, petrochemicals, that sort of thing. And if you recall the early 2000s, there was lots of mergers and acquisitions, and the energy industry really restructured, realigned. We ended up as ConocoPhillips at that point in time. The chemicals business we had was and continues to be in a joint venture with Chevron. I was part of that business for 21 years before coming back to Phillips 66. But in 2013, we spun out of ConocoPhillips. So ConocoPhillips still has all the upstream oil and gas exploration and production. And now we're this integrated downstream energy company that doesn't look like anybody else out there. We have really two primary value chains. We have what you probably easily recognize is we bring crude oil into our refineries. We've got refineries on the West Coast, the East Coast, but most of our refineries in North America are concentrated in the mid-continent and the Gulf Coast. And so we bring crude from oil fields or from import. We're the largest consumer of Canadian crude, so we have pipelines that go all the way up to Canada, and we bring those crude products into our refineries. We also trade crude. We have a large commercial organization to optimize around all of this, and then we've got pipelines and terminals that take refined products out to our both branded and unbranded stations. So depending on where you are in the country, you can see us on the West Coast as 76 brand. You see us in the Midwest and the South and the Gulf Coast as Phillips 66 and Conoco. We still have all those brands, and on the East Coast we show up as 76 as well. We've got assets in Europe and UK. Germany, Austria. The brand that shows up there is the Jet brand. We've got a large refinery in northeast England, Humber, that provides the materials for that. So, and then downstream, or the other value chain we have is NGLs, natural gas liquids. Natural gas liquids are things like ethane and propane and butane, the things you think about providing energy to cook, but more importantly, it's important feedstocks for petrochemicals, all the materials that you use every day without thinking about it, that make your life better, that make your life more efficient, more sustainable. We bring those products out of places like the Permian Basin in West Texas. We process them. We get them into the form that can be used as petrochemical feedstocks, or we export them as energy molecules. And then a lot of what Chevron Phillips Chemical Company consumes are the materials we provide. So we've got those two value chains that are cross-integrated. We've got optimization opportunities across those value chains within our refining complexes, within the NGL to chemicals complexes, and across the whole thing. So we like to think about it as one big organism that we're looking at ways to extract more value, to be more efficient, to be cleaner, and always be safer in what we do every day. And it's a great challenge. It's a fun challenge. The biggest challenge that I faced over the last few years is getting our organization to challenge the status quo, to change how we think about things, because things are changing so fast, so quickly. Gone are the days of the big oil companies where you could have a long career where you just put your head down, focus on what you need to do, and you'll have a great retirement. No, you can't wait for somebody to tell you what to do. We need people down in the organization innovating because they have access to the molecules that need to be optimized. They have access to the technologies that we can bring to bear to make us the kind of company that's going to thrive and be providing energy and improving lives for the next 130 years.
You talk about a low carbon future and bringing new technologies and new ways of working together. So if we think about, the next 5 years, where is Phillips 66? What's the leadership position of Phillips 66 in the next 5 years?
We've scanned the horizon back in 2021, 22 when I came back to this side of the business. That was when net zero 2050 was all the rage. Energy companies were under tremendous pressure. So we looked at a pretty vast array of opportunities in what we called at that point energy transition, new energies. We looked at, we were looking at ways for photo opportunities to create new photo cells. We looked at fuel cells. We looked at how can we produce hydrogen? Where can we use hydrogen? How do we do that? What does carbon capture mean for us? And renewable fuels. How do we generate and produce renewable fuels? And it's interesting. You'll get a laugh out of this. One of the first conversations I had with our technologists who were really pushing us to hydrogen. Hydrogen is the molecule of the future. We have to be big in hydrogen. And hydrogen is a great molecule. Doesn't exist much in nature. You have to produce it. It takes a lot of energy to produce it. And so I was trying to understand how we fit in the hydrogen world. And I said, help me understand where the power comes from. Because to produce hydrogen from water in its purest form takes a tremendous amount of electric power. And the thought then, the conventional wisdom then was, well, gee, everybody's going to be producing renewables, wind and solar, and the cost of power is going to exponentially approach zero. And so we're assuming in our models that the energy input, the power input, is going to be so low cost that we'll be able to produce hydrogen. And I said, well, but there's all these things that are happening that are going to require more and more electrical power. What planet do you have to live on? What do you have to believe for electric power to go to zero? And they said, well, that's what the conventional wisdom is. That's what everyone's believing. And so it's not that surprising to me that today with AI, with EVs, with all of the power demands that are emerging, there's no way the value of electricity is going to go to zero. So we have to rethink where does hydrogen make sense? How does hydrogen make sense? And where we've landed, it's going to be an all of the above world. And I think that's exactly where our new energy secretary is, Chris Wright. I would say that Stephen Koonin agrees with that as well. But some companies rushed down certain pathways in a hurry, got out over their skis, and now they're having to retract. Our first big move was to take one of our large refineries in California. This refinery had become uneconomic. It sits in a beautiful location just outside of Napa, right on San Francisco Bay, and it couldn't afford to process crude oil into refined products in California. But it had the right equipment to take renewable feedstocks like used cooking oil, animal fats, greases from all over the planet, and including soybean oil, things like that, and convert it into renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel. So we spent $1.25 billion to convert that. And the original life of this refinery began in the late 1800s. In San Francisco in the 1800s, the power source for lighting homes and producing a lot of power was whale oil. Whales were becoming extinct and overused. So we've been in the energy transition business for 130 some years. Interestingly enough, we built a refinery to produce kerosene to replace whale oil. You could, with the stretch of imagination, say that whale oil was a renewable feedstock. We're not going to convert whale oil into renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel. But the point is, you've always got to be challenging the status quo. You've always got to be thinking of what's changing out there that can impact the business. We know that everyone's going to need more and more energy. The question is, how do we provide that energy in a way that's accessible to people? How do we provide the energy the world needs without destroying economies that's affordable? We could take CO2 out of the atmosphere and water, and we know the chemistry and the processes to convert CO2 and water into jet fuel. We could produce jet fuel, gasoline, diesel all day long, but you couldn't afford a plane ticket because of the economics of that. So someday when we have fusion power and we still want to fly jet-powered engines across the Atlantic and Pacific, and we need jet fuel, we can make it from CO2 and water. And so we're already thinking about how do we do that beyond taking hydrocarbons out of the ground and converting them into fuels. But if you look at our materials side of our business, petrochemicals, we still need hydrocarbons to do that. And we can do that in a very benign way to the environment. And so there's still going to be a hydrocarbon element and all the above elements in the energy foundations of the world for a long time to come. It's transportable, it's high energy density, and it's great in the right purposes. But there's going to be other innovations that come in that provide the energy needed where electricity makes sense. I do believe nuclear power, whether it's fission or fusion, are going to be the primary energy sources of the future. But we're still going to need whether it's for national defense, national security, long transportation in the air, we're going to need liquid hydrocarbons to fuel the future as well.
Yeah, wow. See, I mean, the industry is undergoing a lot of change, and I think that's true for a lot of industries, every industry,
Yep.
especially with all this technology disruption, the geopolitical shifts, the social shifts that we talked about yesterday. How do you, if you're talking to other CEOs and you're trying to balance all this change that's coming down the horizon, and maybe it's going to be choppy for different industries in terms of the time it hits, but how would you advise other CEOs to balance the short-term profitability requirements with the longer-term investments in innovation and some of these more forward-looking investments?
Yes, there's a tremendous pressure on the energy industry to provide cash returns to shareholders today, right now. If some segment of the investment world had their way, every dollar that we generated from providing energy, improving lives, would go fully be returned to shareholders, particularly in the refining business. Because again, the narrative 5 years ago was that refining will be dead and will be gone within 10 years. So just give us all your cash, don't reinvest it, just give us all your cash, and then you'll just quietly go away into the good night. We now know, and we tell our refinery employees, that the world's going to need what you do for a very long time, 30, 50, I don't know, well beyond your careers, but we have to be really good at it. We have to innovate every day, and we can talk about how we're doing that with AI because it's been incredibly impactful. But what we tell our investors today, and it's been powerful, is that we'll give you 50 cents of every dollar we generate from operations, but the other 50 cents we're going to reinvest in the company, whether it's fairly high growth NGL midstream business, the petrochemicals business is high growth, producing materials for the future, or investing in making our refineries more efficient, more producing higher value products, changing technologies in there, driving our assets harder, but doing it safely because of the technologies that are available to help us do that. That's the focus. And so there is a balance between near-term, keeping investors happy and engaged and providing capital that you need, and the long-term. What do we look like in 10, 20, 30 years? And it's important to do both of those.
So you mentioned that, and I know you guys are using a lot of advanced technologies. Talk about that. How is AI impacting the future of Phillips 66?
We've been doing it actually for quite some time. It really started with machine learning. Refineries, petrochemical plants generate a tremendous amount of data that historically we haven't done a lot with. Now we do a lot with that data. And if you think about all of we deal with massive equipment, massive turbines operating at high temperatures, pressures, the footprints, thousands of acres of things out there. And we need to keep them safe and in optimal operating condition all the time. And so we've decided we have to collect that data and use machine learning to make us smarter about how this equipment's operating. And the first thing is we can operate it safer. We can push our facilities harder and operate more safely because of the information that we get. And then you think about predictive maintenance. Traditionally, you'd shut down a refinery every 4 years, open everything up, clean everything out, whether it needed to be fixed or not, and put it back together and start up. That's the most dangerous time in an operator's life, is when you're shutting down or starting up these refineries or petrochemical plants. It's incredibly expensive, getting more expensive every day. And so we're able to use the machine learning data to actually be predictive, and the technology we're using today can say, no, you've been opening this up every 4 years just because your owner's manual for your car tells you to change the oil. That's the safe thing to do. But now we've got data that says that thing can run for another 5 years without touching it. So we're saving hundreds of millions of dollars, and there are bad things that aren't happening because we're not doing those things and exposing people to those risks now because of the technology, because of the AI bots that we have watching all of this. And then the next extension of that is providing real-time information to our frontline operators. And you hear about people feeling threatened by AI. Our operators love it because it helps them make better decisions faster. We've got screens above them that says, okay, here's where the AI says we can optimize, and here's what it says you should be able to make in dollars per barrel. So it essentially gamifies their jobs, and they can see the changes they make, and they can see the impact on dollars per barrel almost instantaneously. And 30-some years ago, when I was a process engineer in a petrochemical plant, I would spend nights, weekends out there working with operators, and I knew theoretically how the equipment should run. They knew how it really was running from a practical perspective. They would say, hey, I'm seeing this. We're not able to run this where we think it should. I'd have to go to these old data historians and pull out all this data and put it in an Excel spreadsheet and try to figure out what was going on. And I would say, okay, you got a problem with this heat exchanger, or you need to move this temperature 1 degree. We're not eliminating engineers, we're not eliminating operators, but now the two of them combined with AI can get those same answers in a matter of minutes or hours, and push even farther and look at the facility from a more comprehensive perspective. Because if you've ever driven by or through or around a refinery, you just see this massive towers and tanks and all these things. And historically, you'd only focus on one operation and you try to optimize your operation. Now, we can go all the way back to our pipeline systems and feed information that the whole system is optimized and operating seamlessly, and there's no bumps in the middle of the night that can cause problems, or fewer bumps in the middle of the night that can cause problems.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of CEOs want to kind of balance risk with all the opportunities. Mm-hmm. What are the things that can get in your way that you have to watch out for?
Well, energy companies are historically very conservative, and because of the forces that we deal with, the high pressure, high temperature, runaway chemical reaction potential, all of this, we're very very conservative about making changes. For instance, when things like Gen AI, ChatGPT came out, so we've got all this proprietary data. What if it leaks out? What if it does this or that? And and then I'm walking through a control room in one of my visits, and there is a relatively young operator who was training brand new operators, and he had ChatGPT on his personal phone, using it to explain to these new operators how this complex equipment worked, and it was spot on accurate. And so that they were using it real time, and so that kind of lowered my fear of ChatGPT. That kind of said, okay, and by the way, Tandra, you need to get this person involved in all of your planning, because here's where it's really happening out there. And so now there are things going on with AI out in the organization that I have no idea what they're doing. We set up guardrails, but we've released the organization and said, okay, if you've got ideas, here's the people in technology that you can go talk to, and they can help you create a bot to do what you need done. They don't need to come back to the executive leadership team. I mean, they know more about it than I ever will, but it's happening in real time. A couple of months ago, we had a board meeting. We took our board members through kind of a show and tell of all the applications we were using in AI, and it was mind-boggling. And whether it was the example I used of operators and engineers collaborating with AI bots to operate faster. We've got a large commercial organization. We trade multiples of the volumes of oil and gas and NGLs that we process. And you imagine you're a trader out there trying to make an incremental 1, 2, 3, 4 cents a gallon or a barrel. The better information you have, the faster you get that information, the better the locations are. The more you know about your options, the more money you can make for the organization. So we've done similar things with bots that are doing that, helping them make better decisions faster, but also doing the mundane part of their job of entering all the information for that transaction to be realized into the system with fewer mistakes than a human being doing it. And so it just makes it faster, better, more efficient, more profitable for us.
Fascinating. We've got a board conversation tomorrow around board governance. There's several board directors that are here today. What would your advice, outside of the oil and gas industry, what would your advice to board directors be, coaching them to help frame the issues for their organization?
I think they need to have a level of understanding to know what questions to ask, what they should be nervous about, what they shouldn't be nervous about. The discussion at breakfast this morning, we get lots of questions around cybersecurity, what new things are coming, and I'm not sure that the shadow of quantum computing and its impact on cybersecurity has even entered their mindset. So we need to get them sensitized to that, not so they lose sleep at night, but so they can start asking the right questions to make sure that we've got the right talent and that we're involving the right organizations to protect all of that data that we have, and these systems that if nefarious players were able to get in there, they could blow things up. They could damage national security. The assets are getting more and more concentrated in the hands of fewer and fewer companies, and so that creates opportunity, but it also creates risk. And those are the kinds of strategic elements that it's important for board members to focus on. And our board members, we talk about, they focus on the strategy of the company, the talent in the company, and the risks that the company faces. That's what board members need to focus on.
Understand.